Hey guys, welcome back to Broadway Grosses, and today we have an interesting week. This was one of the worst weeks in Broadway July 4th post history, so let's get into it. & Juliet fell from 99.32 to 98.51, going from 1,181,687 to 1,132,989. A very significant drop, but again, it's still doing banger numbers. Again, & Juliet has always done well, and despite it falling significantly, this is just a simple speed bump, and it will do very well for the rest of the summer, I believe. And again, I don't talk too much about this show because I'm proven correct most of the time that it does very well, and any show would kill for this week's overall gross numbers. A Beautiful Noise, on the other hand, is doing quite poor, going from 66% to 55%, and 734,307 to 623K, and not good at all. But again, A Beautiful Noise typically does this kind of business anyways, and again, I think it will do 7s and 8s and 9s throughout the summer, but I do think a January closing is maybe imminent. I think it all depends on how it does the summer. If it doesn't make $1 million this summer, I think it will close in January, and I don't think the fall months will be kind to it. Back to the Future is a behemoth of a musical with only 6 performances. It played to 99% capacity and 1,222,731 compared to last week's 100% capacity. And I think last week had like 4 performances, I think. But anyways, this has proven to be a behemoth of a musical, a smash hit out the gate, and will definitely have a good solid couple of years on Broadway. And compared to another new musical, Here Lies Love, it proves that there's a clear distinction between 2 new musicals, that being Back to the Future and Here Lies Love, both of which, played to not 8 performances and had, you could say, reduced ticket prices, but one is doing actually successful and the other one is not. Camelot is failing quite significantly with 69% capacity and 485,000 in the bank, which is a significant drop from last week's 502,000 and 74% capacity, but it is closing, so it doesn't matter. Funny Girl went from 86.65 to 86.17 and 1,373,605 to 1,226,136. That show is closing, but again, any show would kill for these numbers despite it starting to have a decrease in sales. Hadestown is not doing well, but what else is new? Going from 99.48 to 96.73 and 672K to 674K. Again, these are not great numbers. I predict a January closing for Hadestown. Any show that's doing below 700K or even in the 700K range is not doing well on Broadway. That's what I believe based on past numbers and shows that have done the same. And while Eva Noblezada is leaving, and we could get a potential star stunted cast for Eurydice, I don't think it's going to be enough to boost the box office, and this is going to need to go back into the 8s and 9s consistently in order for it to survive past January. But regardless, I think this does close in 2024. Hamilton went from 101.33 to 101.5 and 1,892,442 to 1,855,729. Here Lies Love went from 82% to 95% and 602,192 to 514,969 with an average ticket of $74. And while the capacity was the highest it had ever been, and while the capacity had been the highest it had ever been, it had the lowest gross of the past couple of weeks that it's been here. And while yes, it had 7 performances, Back to the Future had 6, and it made $1 million plus. So there really is no excuse for Here Lies Love. And the fact that the ticket is $74 is very concerning. $514 is disastrous. And again, we'll have to see how it does in the weeks leading up. But this could close in January. It all depends. If it can't make $1 million at all this summer, or at least come close to it in the 900K range, and do consistent 8s and 9s, I fear that it will close in January. And you have to think it's a very controversial show based on a dictator. It's not very tourist friendly, even though it has huge spectacle and it appears tourist friendly. When people hear about the story, they're like, oh, it's about a dictator that was a terrible person. Might pass on that to see Back to the Future. And there's a very unconventional hard sell on Broadway, and the producers might have wanted to have put this in a smaller theater because what they have done has cost them millions upon millions of dollars, and it needs to make Moulin Rouge type of money in order to survive, even right out the gate. And again, I think obviously it's a tough sell. It's, was off Broadway 10 years ago. I can understand that it would take some time. The producers might think it might do 6s and 7s. But at this point, it needs to have done like last week, it shouldn't have done 602. It should have done 702. This should have a 6 or a 7 in front of it. Even that's really low, but at least it would have been a better start. If we're being super, realistic, it should be at an 8 or a 9 now. But again, I know it's a tough sell, and we will see. It's still a we will see. It could turn a corner. But again, this is very concerning and very, 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 very likely to be either a massive flop or a huge turnaround via Beetlejuice style. Akimbo went from 92% to 87%, going from 649,164 to 613K. And again, Kimberly normally does these numbers, although a Strange Loop was doing better this time last year. And again, I do think Akimbo will close in January as it's doing similar business to a Strange Loop. But if it's going to last longer than January, it needs to do consistent 8s and 9s into the summer and into the fall, which I don't think it's going to do. Moulin Rouge went from 98% to 95%, going from 1,183,746 to 1,175,469. Softer numbers for sure, and it's a little bit concerning, but again, I won't be too concerned about Moulin Rouge until it has a week where it does 1 million zeros with all zeros in front of it. But for right now, any show would kill for this kind of growth, and while it is on the softer side, it's still raking in the money, and I think Moulin Rouge is safe for at least another year and a half, and I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But again, it's definitely something that's going to keep our eyebrows a little bit raised. New York is actually thinking about closing this month via a New York Post exclusive, and these numbers prove it, going from 76% to 70%, an average ticket of $67 and 770K to 630,461 this week. Terrible numbers all around. The average ticket is bad, Cinderella bad, and it's just not looking good. And I predict New York will close in Labor Day. It really started off decent, and then it just crashed and burned, and that's because, put simply, musical wasn't any good. Once Upon a One More Time should also close it up, and I think we'll close by Labor Day from 59% to 51%, and 620K to 616K, and the average ticket actually went up. It's been doing 600K since May. It is not going to do well. Marquee theater shows always flop. Just put it out of its misery. Now, Parade made $1 million this week compared to last week's 1,141,308. And performing to 96% capacity, doing exceptionally well, and that is closing rather soon. Shucked went from 730K to 698K, and 95% to 89%, and this actually had the lowest drop out of all of the new musicals, and again, I think this will make it to January because it does cost a lot less, and again, it's consistently done 6s and 7s and 8s, and again, I don't think it will be a Beetlejuice type hit where it will run past January because it's going to stay, if it doesn't make $1 million this summer, it's not going to get to that Beetlejuice level, or even 900K. I think it will do 7s and 8s and 6s, and then in the fall, 4s, 5s, and then they'll announce a closing in November. 6 went from 913K to 851K, and 88% to last week's 92%. Still doing exceptionally well. I know a lot of people are concerned, but again, I think 851,000 is perfectly fine for 6. I don't think we have anything to worry about, but if it goes to a 7 or a 6, that's when it's concerning. Some Like It Hot went from 79% to 71%, and 912,476 to 796,507. Again, big drop, almost a $200,000 drop, or not almost, but it was 115,000 drop. And again, I think in the New York Post thing, they said that Some Like It Hot might also close in January. And again, I think this is just a bad week for Some Like It Hot because in June, it's actually done the best in terms of best new musicals that have opened this season because it's been making $1 million, and none of the other shows have been doing that consistently. So again, I think the producers will probably see where it goes, but I think it will close in January. But again, they've already lost a lot of money, so I wouldn't be surprised if they close via Labor Day, and if it continues down the 7s and 8s and 6s, then it will definitely close. So it's definitely a we'll see right now, but it could go one of those two ways. And then Sweeney went from 100%, 99%, and 1,794,000 to 1,740,780, and actually had its worst week, which again, if this is your worst week, you're doing pretty well. So those are the grosses for this week. Overall, a terrible week for Broadway, one of the weakest post-July 4th drops I've ever seen. A lot of shows are doing pretty poor. I think things like Kimberly Akimbo, and Juliet, Hadestown, those numbers that they posted this week are very similar to numbers they posted previous weeks. So there were some things that I'm not too concerned about, but I think the things I'm most concerned about is Here Lies Love, New York, New York, Once Upon a One More Time, and Some Like It Hot. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, sub, and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.